because the car was parked too far away from the interior columns. Unfortunately, 34 people were killed. The bomber was a 43-year-old Egyptian, Imad Salim. According to stories from the New York Times, Salim was paid $1 million and was trained by the FBI to perform this reprehensible act. Salim figured out that he was being set up to be the patsy and taped John Antisev. Antisev, a top American FBI agent, told Salim to proceed with the bombing. The media is strangely quiet about this act of treason from within. This is incredible. Few people are aware that there was an attempt to blow up the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City in 1985, 10 years before the last incident. The New American magazine has done a wonderful job of investigating and reporting about this group that initially tried to blow up the building and who live in Elohim City, Oklahoma. Many independent investigators believe this same rogue group was involved in the 1995 bombing and may have had support from elements within the FBI. It is said that
a thief always returns to the scene of the crime.
Could it be that units within the government have come back to finish their unfinished work at the World Trade Center, as it appears they did in Oklahoma City? Point 11. The United States government spends a minimum of $40 billion of our tax money a year on the FBI, CIA, and NSA. These agencies were responsible for helping start and finance Al-Qaeda and have been closely monitoring the Taliban, bin Laden, and Al-Qaeda for the past decade. Yet all of these agencies, with all their money and all their technology, flatly deny they had prior knowledge that there would be such an attack. Hogwash. After the assault, these agencies were actually rewarded with significant increases in funding and were lauded by the administration and the press. This is sick stuff. Point 12. In the week before 9/11, there was an increase of 1,200% in trading activity of orders to go short on the stocks of American Airlines and United Airlines, as reported by the Chicago Securities Exchange. An investor goes short when he expects the stock to decrease in value. Tens of millions of dollars were made by those who appear to have had forewarning of this event. According to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the London Independent, a high percentage of this activity came from one investment firm, Deutsche Bank and A.B. Brown. The principal manager of this firm until 1998 is now the director of the CIA. There has still been no official investigation. Point 13. According to Reuters News Service, 2 of the terrorists went to a topless bar a few nights before the attack. While at the bar, they were supposedly obnoxious, had lots of drinks, and each spent over $200 for lap dances. The story goes on to say they talked about how America was going to suffer and conveniently left business cards. Oh, one more thing. Being faithful Muslims, they also left a Holy Koran. Sure. The spin doctors must have been drunk when they came up with this story. They want us to believe fundamental Muslims who are going to give their lives for Allah would go to a strip bar, get drunk, which is against Islamic law, tell the world what they're going to do, and then leave their business cards and a Quran. The only thing more amazing than this story is that most Americans seem to believe it. Point 14. On the day of the attack, a couple in Jersey City, New Jersey, reported that they saw a group of men on top of an adjoining building filming the first jet hit the North Tower and cheering. They assumed that these men were Arab terrorists and called the police. The police caught these men, but they were not Arabs. They were Israelis, here in the United States without legal permits. They worked for a moving company that, according to Forward magazine, a local Jewish publication, has possible ties with the Mossad. Who were these men who had prior knowledge? Why was this story suppressed? And why did our government allow them to return to Israel? The hijackings. Naturally, the common people don't want war. But after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine policy, and it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in any country. Hermann Göring, one of Hitler's top men during the Nuremberg trials. The administration and media's story concerning the actual hijackings is this. On the morning of 9/11/01, 19 radical Islamic fundamentalists hijacked 4 commercial airliners. The hijackers used paper cutters to overwhelm and kill the 8 pilots and to control the 266 passengers and flight attendants. The 2 flights that took off from Boston, Flights 11 and 175, were redirected to New York, where they were crashed into the World Trade Center buildings. The World Trade Center buildings caught on fire, causing the trusses to soften and expand, and both WTC buildings 1 and 2 came down. The flight that took off from Newark, Flight 93, flew all the way out to Ohio and then circled back towards Washington, D.C. During this flight, several passengers made phone calls from the plane. A number of the passengers made an unsuccessful attempt to regain control of the plane, and during the struggle, the plane crashed in central Pennsylvania. The now famous last words of Todd Beamer, one of the passengers of Flight 93, were, "Let's roll." The 4th flight, Flight 77, took off from Washington, D.C., flew across Virginia, West Virginia, and got to Ohio, turned around, and flew back to Washington, D.C., where it slammed into the Pentagon. This is the story that a vast majority of Americans have repeatedly been told and believe. The following list of objective facts, worthy questions, and valuable insights into this segment of the 9/11 events are essential to making good decisions as to what really happened. Point 15. Of the 8 pilots on the 4 flights, 6 had military experience and were considered men who could take care of themselves. Is it possible all 8 could be overwhelmed and killed by hijackers who were using paper cutters? Further, is it possible none of the 8 pilots could take any evasive actions or send out alerts to the FAA? Yes, these things are possible, but they are not probable. Point 16. 2 supposed pilots of hijacked Flight 77 were Khalid al-Midar and Nawak al-Hamzi. This is the flight that disappeared over Ohio, came back, and pulled off an extreme spiral maneuver, leveled off, and hit the Pentagon. Flight instructor Rick Garza at Sorby's Flying Club had this to say about our ace pilots.
It was like Dumb and Dumber. I mean, they were clueless. It was clear to me they weren't going to make it as pilots.
Point 17. Flying jumbo commercial airliners is not like driving a golf cart. There are significant skills one has to learn. First, the pilots who were not from this country would have to fly by sight for several hundred miles. Secondly, the pilots on Flights 175 and 77 were said to have brought the planes down from 30,000 feet, performed fast and tight 280-degree veers, and hit their targets with bullseye precision, all by hand. Give me a break. A commercial airliner creates 1.5 to 2 times the normal gravity when it turns. With turns at this altitude, this speed, and this degree of tightness, the plane would be pulling 6 to 7 times normal gravity. According to experienced commercial pilots, these maneuvers would be virtually impossible for any but the most advanced pilots to accomplish. Point 18. Very few people are aware that the Telegraph, a paper out of New